What is up, YouTube? It's summer. Welcome to my photography channel. So I'm going to be developing some color film soon in the next couple of days, and I've already developed a few rolls. I'm pretty new to developing color film on my own. I'm used to dropping it off and having a lab process it for me, but recently I decided to check it out and really get my hands dirty myself developing my own rolls and see what that experience is like. One thing I can tell you about the color film developing process is it's awesome. I really enjoy the process of developing color film. Another thing I can tell you about the process, it's tedious. Trying to keep your your fluids at the right temperature is not an easy process. So I bought a tool to help make that a bit easier. This guy. So for those of you who aren't familiar with what this is a sous vide. It is traditionally most practically used for cooking. It's a culinary tool, and you use it to cook meats and other items for a very long window of time at a low temperature, and it cooks. I don't know, I've never had anything that was sous vide actually. I'm gonna have to try this in that capacity possibly, but it's supposed to make really delicious food. What does this have to do with photography? So this guy is going to make it possible for me to regulate the temperature of my water much better than I am right now. When it comes to color photography or developing color film, and we'll talk about this a little bit later in this video, you have to have your developer, especially your developer, at a really specific temperature, which is 102 degrees. Now, I don't know about you, but that's a really weird temperature to have your developer, or try to consistently keep your developer at. So I bought this because it's going to make keeping my developer temperature at the correct numbers for proper development a lot easier. So we're going to go ahead and open this up. I haven't opened the box up yet. I just picked it up. It came in today. So we're going to go ahead and open it. I've actually never seen a sous vide or touched a sous vide before. So yeah, let's get into it. So, oops, dropping things. I picked this particular model because of the way that it clamps on to the bowl or the container that you have your water bath in. It seemed to be the most practical attachment method of any of the sous vides that I saw in the list. And I also like the size of it. It's nice and kind of, I mean, sous vides in general aren't very big, but it's nice and compact and portable. So I figured all of this would make this particular sous vide option a good one for me. All right, so here it is. Oh, yeah. The way this opens up. So the way that this thing works is I create my water bath, and the water bath is what's going to keep my temperature steady for my developer and my other chemicals. I'll put them in a jar in that water bath. And this guy will circulate the water and keep it nice and hot. So I'm very excited to play around with this and see what it got, see what it's working with, so to speak. Yeah, I'll see you soon. Alright y'all, let's get into this film developing process. So right here you see I have the sous vide doing its job, and this thing was super simple to use. I'm not going to get into all the functions, but right now it's heating up my water bath. Once it hits temperature, it's almost there. Actually, it is there. I'm going to go ahead and take This guy, which is my jar of developer, I'm working with C41 chemicals made by Cenistil. I'm going to go ahead and put it in here and let it do its thing. This bath with this sous vide is going to keep the temperature of my developer nice and steady once it gets up to the correct number. So I'm really stoked about that. Let's go ahead and look at all of the things that I have laid out here so that you know what you need to develop color film. So this is my spread. Right here I have my, what are these things called actually? My developing bag. It's a completely blacked out bag that's going to let me load my film onto my development reel. This thing is really great if you live in a space where you either can't set up a completely dark room for yourself, or if you just don't want to immerse your whole self into the darkness in order to load your film onto the reel. We have this guy. This is my can opener to open up my rolls of film. I have 3 rolls of film that I'm going to be developing. Scissors, a thermometer. This guy that's in my bath, that's my developer. That's the thing that's most important, that you get it up to the correct temperature. Ideally you want it to be a temperature of 102 degrees. Here we can see the sous vide is doing its job. This guy is our Blix. That's the second stage in your development process. After you take it through development, you put in the Blix, and then this guy is your final, what is this guy? It's like your final rinse. Not your final rinse. It's your, I forget what this is called. As I already mentioned, I'm new to film development. This last guy here is your final rinse. What it does is it stabilizes the film after you take it through these 2 steps in the process. Then here I have my reels. Right now they're set for 35 millimeter film because that's what we're going to be developing. I have my development tank here and all the components for my development tank, and this guy here helps me to agitate the film once it's inside of the tank. So these are the components that we are going to be working with. We're going to go ahead and do the process of loading the film onto the reel. So we're going to go ahead and load all the things into this bad boy that we need to start the process of getting our film onto the reel. I'm going to go ahead and open up this flap and then open up the zipper, and I just add all the things in. Now these 2 rolls of film, I have 2 rolls of Cenistil 50D. These guys were shot as rated, so I shot them at 50 ISO. This guy, which is a roll of Ectar 100, I accidentally shot it at 400 ISO. So I'm going to develop this one on its own because I'm going to need to push it in the development process, which means I'm going to have to develop it for a different amount of time than what is recommended. So these guys, I can develop it based on the recommended time, so I'm going to go ahead and throw them in there. I'm also going to throw these 2 guys in here, which are my reels. I'm going to throw my development tank with all 3 of its components inside the bag. I'm going to add in my scissors and this guy, my can opener, and those are all the things I need inside of the bag. I zip in it closed. Make sure to close the Velcro strap as well. And then these armholes are what I slide my arms inside of to do this part of the process. So I'm not going to lie, this part of the process can be so annoying. I've always, before this point, this like acquaintance with film that I'm exploring right now, I always use metal reels and metal development tanks. I never use the plastic reels. Supposedly they're supposed to be easier to load, but I've been having a heck of a time getting used to loading the film without being able to see what I'm doing, onto those plastic reels. Sometimes it goes really quickly. I find it's a lot more difficult when I'm loading 120 film than when I'm loading 35 millimeter. Right now I'm organizing all of my things inside of here so I can make sure I know where everything is when I need it. I have a canister of film, actually 2 canisters of film in my hand. I'm sitting one to the side, and right now I have my can opener. I'm going to go ahead and pop open my first roll of film. So this part is hard because you can't use your eyes. You're relying solely on your touch senses in order to get through this process. I have my first canister of film open. I'm grabbing my scissors so I can cut off the tip. I thought I knew exactly where those were. Okay, there I do. Alright, so I'm cutting off the very tip of the film, being careful not to cut off the very tip of my finger. Alright, that's done. And now I'm going to start the process of getting my first roll of film onto the reel. So this really is a sensory experience because you have to find your way to the necessary notch marks and then slide your film into the reel as you need to. Alright, that went beautifully. Now my film is inside my reel and I'm making my way, I'm rolling it on the rest of the way now. I find that I've been having a much easier time with loading 35 millimeter into this system than I have with the 120. I haven't quite figured out why, because it's outside of the fact that the 120 millimeter film doesn't have the perforated edge, the edge with the holes like we have for the 35 millimeter film. I'm not quite sure what exactly the issue is. I don't think that that is what the problem is. Like, I think it could just be the larger format of the film. It's just a little bit more difficult to handle. Alright, so my film is on the roll, and I just cut it away from, there it is, the center of the roll, making sure the rest of it is on there. Alright, perfect. Alright, so the first roll of film is on the reel. I'm going to go ahead and drop it into the container. And I have the second roll. Put these guys to the side, my trash pieces. Alright, so I have my can opener in my hand. I have my second roll of film in my hand. I'm going to go ahead and pop this open too. Alright, cool. I have my second roll of film open. I'm taking it out of the canister. I'm cutting the tail off of the film. Cutting it off. Perfect. Alright, let's grab the reel. Got it in hand. Navigate it to the right part. Found it. Perfect, perfect. Alright, let's get the second roll of film. Hopefully it goes as seamlessly as the first did. Let's see. Lovely. Alright, let's get it rolled on. I always find that when I'm putting on that first roll of film, I always hit a snag as it makes its like first rotation around. And then once I get it past that first little snag, it goes on pretty seamlessly. So I almost have this roll of film on the reel. We're reaching, not quite yet, we're reaching the end. Almost there. Beautiful. Alright, now I'm cutting the tail end off this piece of film. Alright, cool. And let's finish this process off, getting it on. All right, lovely. All right, so I have both of my rolls of film on the reel. Put these guys together, dropping them in a canister, and now I'm assembling my canister. Perfect. Make sure that's on there, nice and snug. Good. Put my cap on. All right, and we're done. So I can go ahead and open this bag up now. And now both of my rolls of film are safely inside of this canister, ready for us to start the process. Because I am still new to color film, I make sure to have my handy dandy cheat sheet nearby to make sure that I get all my times correct and that I don't mismeasure anything. Fun story, with the first couple of rolls of color film I developed, I inverted the temperature numbers. So instead of me developing those first few rolls at 102, I developed them at 120 and was convinced that something had to be wrong with my camera because there was no other explanation for why my colors were coming out as funky as they were. There was another explanation. I was developing my film at a temperature way out of the range of what it should have been. All right, so I have this set up. I'm gonna go ahead and grab a timer, and then we're gonna start the process of working through our different chemical baths. All right, so we are good to go. My developer is officially at 102 degrees. I had to learn a few things about this machine. So it seems to be off by 2 degrees. If the screen reads 104, then the water bath is most likely going to be around 102. I've tested it at a couple of different temperatures, and I'm consistently finding that the water is 2 degrees colder than what my temperature is set on the screen. So once I was able to clear that up, we are good to go. So I'm gonna go ahead and set my timer, and we're gonna do the first bath, which is our developer. So our developer time is 3.5 minutes. And the great thing about developing color film is that it doesn't matter what ISO you're developing. It doesn't matter what brand of film, if it's 35 millimeter or 120 millimeter, none of those things matter. Your development time and the time for your fix, or for your blicks rather, for your final rinse, all of it is going to be consistently the same across the board. So I have my time set for 1.5 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and pour my developer in, start my timer, and start my agitations. So once you put it in, you want to agitate continuously for the first 10 seconds. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Continuous agitation. And then stop. And then you want to try to be as consistent with your agitations as possible. Every 30 seconds, if I were inverting my tank, like flipping it over, you would flip it 4 times. And that comes out to about 10 seconds of agitation. So instead of flipping my tank, I turn my little agitation spool for 10 seconds every 30 seconds. What I find with working with hot chemicals, if I did the inversion method, which I absolutely could, if I did the inversion method, the heat builds up pressure inside the tank, and then it causes the pressure to leak and drip chemicals, and I'm just not really into that. I don't really want to deal with the dripping chemicals. A part of my original plan was to keep the development tank in the water bath. But what I'm finding is that when I take when I take it back out of here, it's usually about the same temperature. When I take the developer out of this container, it's usually about the same temperature that it was when I put it in. It doesn't drop a large amount from when I first put it in to when I take it out. So that's pretty promising. I think I have not been agitating the way that I'm supposed to because I'm talking to y'all. But my agitations are pretty close to what they should be. These 2 rolls, it puts me at about 7 rolls of film that I've developed in these chemicals. And you can do about 20 or so before the chemicals are exhausted. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and pour these guys in. This is my Blix, and this particular chemical, it's set my timer for 8 minutes. So this is the Blix, and you do this process for 8 minutes. And what it does is it protects your film from light. It ceases the film from being light sensitive. So once you're done with this process, you don't have to worry about, there you go. You don't have to worry about your film changing once the light hits it. When this 8 minutes is done, you can go ahead and open the canister up, expose the film to light, and you're good to go. You agitate it for the first 10 seconds. And then once those 10 seconds are passed, you do the same process that you did with the film. You agitate it, either inverting it 4 times every 30 seconds, or agitate it for 10 seconds every 30 seconds. Let's go. So now that we're done with that part of the process, our next step is to wash the film for 3 minutes. I typically come over and I keep it really simple. I'll open up the container. I'm just going to give it a little look and see. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Alright, cool. And I just run water on it continuously for 3 minutes. So now that this process is done, our very last step is to do the final rinse. Go ahead and pop this open. Alright, and it only needs a minute of this. You pour it in, and you agitate continuously for the first 15 seconds. And then once you're done with that first 15 seconds of agitation, you just let it sit until your time is over. And just like that, our rolls of film are developed. Alright y'all, so I'm finished developing my film, and what do my shots look like? Like this. So that process of working with the sous vide was interesting. I went into it with a lot of confidence, and I should have really realized that when you're working with a new process, it does take time to fully understand the way that process is going to work in and out. In terms of the sous vide, it took a little bit of understanding the way that the temperature reading on the screen was going to translate into the actual temperature of the water. What I realized was that the temperature on the screen was always going to be 2 degrees higher than what the water is. So if the screen said 102, then the temperature of the water was only going to measure at 100. Once I figured that out, we were good to go. I managed to get everything running smoothly, where my developer, my chemicals were kept at the optimum temperature, and it was great. Developing color film has been a fun journey so far. That was maybe my 5th and 6th, or my 6th and 7th rolls that I've developed so far. And I started developing color film maybe 2 weeks ago. I've always, as I mentioned earlier, sent it off to the lab, and I really enjoy the process from putting the film in the camera and then seeing it all the way through to prints. These shots that I'm doing right now are outside of my comfort zone. Normally, I'm a studio photographer. I'm a contemporary conceptual artist. I like to come up with concepts, with commentary, with specific message or idea that I'm trying to convey with my work, and I build little dioramas or scenes or all kinds of little representations of whatever those ideas may be, or sometimes big representations of what those ideas are and what that message is I'm trying to communicate, and then I photograph those scenes. So going from the way I really prefer to work, which is in the studio cooking up these ideas and photographing them, to being out on the streets shooting candid things, which is outside of my normal comfort zone. For the month of November, I'm trying to take shots every day. So it's been really cool to leave my house every day, almost all the time, with a camera on my shoulder and snapping the world around me. I'm normally not really into shooting in that way, and I've been catching candids of folks and some really interesting landscape shots, just stuff that's outside of my normal way of working, the normal way that I enjoy working. And I'm learning a lot, and it's intimidating on some levels and fun on many other levels. So I'm looking forward to see what this month of November holds as I take my camera out of the house with me every day, shoot shots, and share them with you. I'm really excited. Next weekend I'm going out with one of my good homies who is a bomb-ass photographer, and we're going to do a photo walk together. We're going to be shooting her land camera. I'm going to shoot my medium format 35 millimeter. Another friend's meeting us out with her twin lens medium format camera, and we're just going to go out and explore and shoot. I may do some POV, some point of view footage, and show all of you our day of shooting and what our end results look like out of that batch as well. So yeah, we'll see. That's all I have for you for today. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate your time. Give the video a like, a comment. If you want to, you can check out my other YouTube channel. It's under the name Summer Seeking. On that channel, I do urban homestead things, farming, food cultivation things, Lots of building of things. I have my tiny home build videos on that channel as well. It's basically everything DIY. Yeah, so you can check that channel out if you like. Also check out my Instagram. I'm Summer Seeking. Until next time, thank you for watching. Thank you for your time. Peace. I'm out.